So this is another case of Japan being a few decades ahead of the curve, but it looks like the US is finally catching up. Grown-ups surpass preschoolers as the biggest toy consumers, the most important age group. Again, Japan noticed this a while ago. Most of the toys Japan makes are for adult collectors for a reason. The only people that are still under the impression that kids play with toys are people that have no kids in their lives. If you have ever done Christmas or birthday shopping for a kid, you would already know that they have zero interest in toys. They want Robux. They want V-Bucks. They want video games. They don't want toys anymore. You know who wants toys? Adults. Oh man, that new $200 anime figure. Yeah, if you could buy me that for my birthday, that'd be nice. Jay Glatfeller spends around $4,800 a year on toys, $2,400 for himself, $2,400 combined on his 6 and 10-year-old son's birthday and Christmas presents. The 39-year-old tech sales rep who moonlights as toy influencer under the moniker Geek Dad Life is among the booming group of grown-ups who are shelling out big bucks to collect action figures, trading cards, and Lego sets that harken back to their youth in the 80s and 90s. And then you got those like us that are like, yeah, fuck that nostalgia bait. We're going to spend money on tig old biddies. So their love for all things Star Wars, Marvel, Ghostbusters, and TMNT is a bright patch in an otherwise bleak outlook on the toy industry. Well, I really don't think they did that much research for this article, because have you seen how poorly Star Wars toys are selling? Even Marvel toys, like their sales have plummeted compared to their peak. So for the first time ever, toy demand from preschoolers was surpassed by demand from toy enthusiasts over the age of 18, with the latter accounting for $1.5 billion in sales from January to April, according to data from Circana. If they included anime figure sales, this would be so much higher. And I mean like by a lot. The reality is that most kids today are not connecting with physical toys in the ways previous generations did. Toy influencer Dan Larson told the Post, explaining that he's a big fan of G.I. Joe. Yeah, he's right, though. So Circana, which tracks consumer trends, described 18 and over as the most important age group for the toy industry, pointing to a recent survey showing that 43% of adults purchased a toy for themselves during the past year. I'm guilty of that. I'm not going to lie. I don't buy as many as I used to, but still, like if a figure that's too good to pass up, if I come across one, I'll buy it. The toy industry has been struggling to recover from a bust that followed a wild boom during the pandemic, when families are holed up at home stocking up on Barbies, Hot Wheels, and board games. Hot Wheels are still good to this day. U.S. Toy sales tumbled 8% to $28 billion last year, after raising 1% from a year earlier, according to Circana data. That's after historic surges in current year -4 and -3. Then the industry-wide revenue surged 16 and 70% respectively. So this year's numbers still look weak. Toy sales dropped 1% through April compared to a year ago, while the number of units sold dipped 2%. Yeah, so they're just going to start reducing the quality and charging more for it. Yeah, that's probably what they're going to do. It's what they're already doing, really. So it's no wonder that toy makers, including Mattel, Hasbro, and Lego, are wooing drinking age consumers. So Lego has someone on staff whose job it is to outreach AFOLs, or adult fans of Lego, who are buying $200 sets, explained James Zahn, editor of Toy Insider. Indeed, Lego sells sets for adults that are far pricier, including a Titanic set that sells for $680, and a Star Wars Millennium Falcon priced at $850. Oh yeah, I've seen those. In another key trend, grown-ups are buying collectible plush toys reminiscent of the Beanie Babies and Cabbage Patch Dolls sparked frenzies in the 80s and 90s. It's just a carryover of the Fumo fad. It's been happening for a while. So 8-inch Squishmallows, collectibles that look like Humpty Dumpty with various faces, including cats, pandas, clowns, and bananas, were the top-selling toy of the first quarter, thanks in large part to adult collectors. Man, if only they included a lot of these Japanese companies' data in these stats. we would get some really, really interesting results. But the majority of grown-up toy buyers are also are so-called kidults, like Larson and Gladfeller, who tend to be men who are into action figures, trading cards, model sets, say experts. The fandom skews more male and more millennial and Gen X, says Gladfeller, who sees the trend as an evolution from previous generations who collected knickknacks. So it's a modern day version of when our grandparents collected Hummel figures, he explained. At least someone understands this. Yeah, meanwhile, all the other boomers are like, lol, grow up, loser. You're still playing with toys. God, I got into that with a boomer coworker actually. When I was talking about video games, and then she was like, "Aren't you too old to be playing video games?" And I just looked back at her like, "Aren't you too old to be watching TV 4 hours a day?" Yeah, she didn't like that very much. Some collectors are sensitive about being described as kidults. The issue inspired Larson to devote an entire segment of his YouTube channel, Secret Galaxy, to discuss whether action figure collecting is an embarrassing hobby. No, that all depends on who you're talking to. Yeah, there will always be some people that yeah, they'll consider it an embarrassing hobby. But spoiler alert, they most likely have at least one hobby that you find cringy, so not like it really matters. Or what's cringy about them is that they are just so fucking milk toast and boring. Like, all right, so what hobbies do you have? Oh, I like to travel and watch Netflix. Oh, okay, so you're just another NPC that does the same things all the other NPCs do. Very, very interesting. Yeah, you're a very, very unique and interesting individual. Yeah. So the answer, he concluded, is yes and no. Societal perceptions that toys are made for children feeds into the embarrassment, he said. On the other hand, collecting toys has become more acceptable because companies are making a lot of things for adults, according to Larson. Japan has been doing that for decades, and they do much better stuff. Yeah, could you imagine like major American companies like Mattel or Hasbro making Bishojo cast-off figures? Yeah, I think they're flat out unwilling to give us what we want. If tiny plastic people brighten your little world, Lars said in a segment, don't let anyone take that away from you. I agree. Like I've always maintained, like at least when you get older, you have your own house, your own apartment, whatever. Surround yourself with whatever you find pleasing to look at. Like back in the day, they used what we know as classical art, like things like paintings and the like. Like remember the old cliche, the mansion that just has random vases on display. Yeah, things like that. Like so, if for you it's plastic figures, if that's what you enjoy looking at, buy them. So it can be a pricey hobby. The average collector spends between $300 and $400 a month, according to Larson, who keeps some of his collection on display in a wall in his house he shares with his wife. Yeah, and what's funny too is like, yeah, a lot of these YouTubers, they are like Gary as well, Nerdrotic. Like, you remember what was it? Gavin McInnes tried to shame him, like trying to play like the incel card or something. And had to be reminded, like, yeah, I'm married and I have a kid, you motherfucker. Yeah, try that shit again. So other items are stored in closets, basements, and various bins. Toy industry honchos welcome the kidults to their toy chest, but insist kids will always rule the toy aisle. All right, so they're set on failing. That's what I'm reading here. So for one thing, the first quarter is typically the slowest time of the year for the industry, suggesting that adults' buying power stood out because there were fewer purchases of kids after families binged on the holidays, which might actually be true. That's a good point. The primary consumer is always going to be children, are insisted, but we are finding that the adult market is flexing its muscle and has reached that tipping point. Now, you want to know why the primary market for American toys is always going to be kids? Because they're still making their toys primarily for kids. See, in Japan, they make like cast off waifu figures, obviously aimed at adults. Yeah, that's what you need to do. You got to specifically make things that the adults would want. That's not just nostalgia bait for the stuff they liked when they were kids. You'll be rolling in money if you just did that. Yeah, failed to pull the incel card. That's always funny to see happening. I do fucking love it when someone tries to play that on someone who's married with children. Not like it would matter even if they were an incel. Just pick any random dude that has an action figure collection worth $20,000, even if he is an incel. He's got more disposable income than you do. How does that make you feel? Yeah, that incel is like flexing his wealth all over you. Like, that's why you're so mad at him and calling him an incel. Isn't that right? Yeah, remember Henry Cavill, hoser mad? Exactly. Yeah, all of like this whole attitude seems to disappear as soon as guys that they're interested in are doing it. Then it becomes okay. Yeah, haters gonna hate. There's a lot of jealousy. Now, a lot of married men, that they are legitimately jealous of all the single men that have all that disposable income. And you know, they try to brag about it. Like they try to brag, like they try to flex on you. Like, it's the weirdest thing. Like, oh, I could waste $5,000 a month on that shit too if I didn't have a wife and kids to take care of. That's a weird flex. So that you're literally just admitting that your butt hurts that I have more disposable income than you. Huh? Whatever. You'll get over it eventually.